In the exclusive Palm Beach district of Florida, the sun beat down on the pristine white exterior of the Royal Palm Resort, where the Thompson family were enjoying their annual summer vacation. The resort's reputation for luxury and impeccable service had drawn the wealthy family back year after year, though their appreciation for the staff left much to be desired. Mrs. Patricia Thompson, dressed in her designer swimwear and dripping in jewelry, reclined on her poolside lounger while barking orders at the housekeeping staff. Her husband, Richard Thompson, a hedge fund manager from New York, barely looked up from his laptop as he continued making million-dollar trades. Their teenage children, Brittany and Tyler, were busy taking selfies and complaining about the slow poolside service. Among the staff attending to the Thompsons was Rose Williams, a quiet, dignified woman in her early 60s who had worked in hospitality for over 4 decades. Despite her years of experience and impeccable service record, the Thompsons treated her with thinly veiled disdain. "Can't you move any faster?" Patricia snapped as Rose carefully arranged fresh towels on their loungers. "I swear, the help gets slower every year. I should speak to management about this." Rose simply smiled and continued her work with practiced grace. What the Thompsons didn't know, what none of the guests knew, was that Rose had a secret that would turn their privileged world upside down. 25 years ago, Rose had started as a housekeeper at this very resort. Through determination, smart investments, and an unexpected inheritance from the previous owner who had taken her under his wing, she had quietly purchased controlling shares in the resort's parent company. Now, she owned not just the Royal Palm, but a chain of luxury hotels across the Caribbean and Florida coast. Yet Rose chose to continue working alongside her staff, believing that true leadership meant understanding every aspect of her business from the ground up. She took pride in maintaining the highest standards of service, even if it meant enduring the occasional entitled guest. The story took an interesting turn when Brittany Thompson knocked over her strawberry smoothie, creating a pink mess on the pristine deck. Instead of apologizing, she pointed at Rose. "You should have put the table closer. Now look what you made me do." Patricia Thompson seized the opportunity to make a scene. "This is unacceptable. I want to speak to the owner right now. I've had enough of this incompetent service. Do you know how much we pay to stay here?" Rose calmly cleaned up the spill while other guests began to take notice of the commotion. The Thompson family's loud complaints echoed across the pool area, drawing uncomfortable glances from other vacationers. "I assure you, madam, this will be addressed," Rose replied softly, maintaining her composure. She knew something the Thompsons didn't. The annual board meeting was scheduled for the following morning, where she would be making some significant changes to the resort's policies regarding guest behavior. That evening, as the Thompsons dined at the resort's exclusive restaurant, they continued their pattern of degrading behavior. Richard Thompson sent back 3 perfectly prepared dishes, while Patricia loudly criticized the wine selection. Tyler made inappropriate comments about the young waitstaff, and Brittany recorded everything on her phone, threatening to post negative reviews online. Little did they know that Rose was in her private office, reviewing security footage and guest complaint records. Over the past few years, she had documented numerous incidents involving the Thompson family, building a case for implementing a new guest conduct policy. The next morning, Rose prepared for the board meeting, changing from her housekeeping uniform into a tailored business suit. She reviewed her presentation one final time, a comprehensive plan to enhance guest experience while protecting staff dignity through a strict code of conduct policy. Meanwhile, the Thompsons were planning their own presentation to the board, convinced that their status as frequent guests would give them leverage to demand Rose's termination. Patricia had spent the morning gathering signatures from other wealthy guests who shared their elitist attitudes. As Rose walked into the boardroom, she passed the Thompsons waiting in the lobby. They didn't even glance at her, assuming she was another hotel employee. Patricia was busy telling anyone who would listen about how she would ensure that incompetent Maid would never work in hospitality again. The board members stood respectfully as Rose entered. "Good morning, Mrs. Williams," they greeted her with genuine warmth. She had earned their respect through years of intelligent business decisions and compassionate leadership. When the Thompsons were finally invited into the board room to present their complaints, they stopped dead in their tracks. There, at the head of the table, sat Rose, no longer in her housekeeping uniform, but commanding the room with quiet authority. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson," Rose began, her voice calm but firm. "I understand you have some concerns about our service. As the owner and CEO of Royal Palm Resorts International, I take such matters very seriously." The color drained from Patricia Thompson's face as the reality of the situation slowly sank in. Richard's usual confidence crumbled as he realized they had spent the past week insulting the very person who controlled their favorite vacation destination. Rose continued, "While we value all our guests, we also believe in maintaining a respectful environment for both our clients and our staff. Our new guest conduct policy, which the board has just approved unanimously, sets clear guidelines for behavior and consequences for violations." The meeting concluded with the Thompsons receiving a formal notice that their future reservations at any Royal Palm property would be subject to review. Their privileged world had been shaken to its core by the very person they had dismissed as just the help. As they left the board room in stunned silence, they passed a group of housekeeping staff who smiled warmly at Rose. The staff had always known and respected their leader, who had never forgotten her roots and treated everyone, from dishwashers to executives, with equal dignity. The story of Rose Williams began circulating among the resort staff, not as a tale of revenge, but as an inspiration. She had proven that success wasn't about putting others down, but about lifting people up, regardless of their position. Her journey from housekeeper to owner had been paved with hard work, dignity, and an unwavering belief in treating all people with respect. That evening, as the sun set over the Royal Palm Resort, Rose changed back into her housekeeping uniform and continued her rounds. Not because she had to, but because she chose to, a reminder to herself and others that no honest work was beneath anyone's dignity, and that true character was revealed in how you treated others, regardless of their status in life. The news of Rose Williams' true identity spread through the Royal Palm Resort like wildfire. Guests who had previously ignored the housekeeping staff now looked at them differently, wondering if they too might be secret millionaires. The Thompson family, still reeling from their humbling experience, had retreated to their suite, avoiding the curious glances and whispered conversations that followed them around the property. But Rose's story was far more complex than most people realized. The morning after the board meeting, she sat in her private office, looking through an old photo album. The images told the story of her journey, from a young woman with nothing but determination to a successful business owner who had never lost sight of her values. One particular photograph caught her eye, a yellowed image of herself standing beside Mr. Chen, the previous owner of the Royal Palm Resort. He had been more than just her employer, he had become her mentor and friend during the most challenging years of her life. 25 years ago, when Rose first started working at the resort, she had caught Mr. Chen's attention not through grand gestures, but through small acts of dedication. While other staff members rushed through their tasks, Rose took extra time to learn guests' preferences, remember their names, and anticipate their needs. Mr. Chen had watched as she worked double shifts to support her younger sister through college, never complaining, always maintaining her dignified demeanor. He recognized in her the same spirit that had helped him build his business from nothing. Success isn't just about making money, he had told her one evening as they walked through the empty lobby. It's about creating value for others. Remember that, Rose. Now, as Rose closed the photo album, her assistant knocked on the door. "Mrs. Williams, the staff meeting is about to begin." In the employee dining room, nearly 100 staff members gathered for what they thought would be a routine meeting. Instead, Rose shared her vision for the future of Royal Palm Resorts, a future that would revolutionize how luxury hotels treated their employees. Starting next month, she announced, we're implementing a profit-sharing program for all full-time staff members. Additionally, we're establishing an education fund to support employees and their children who wish to pursue higher education." The room erupted in applause and tears of joy. These were the kinds of changes that could transform lives, just as Mr. Chen had transformed hers. Meanwhile, up in their suite, the Thompson family was having a heated discussion about their future. Patricia paced the room, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor. "How were we supposed to know?" she demanded. She was wearing a housekeeping uniform. Who does that when they own the entire resort? Richard Thompson, usually confident and commanding, sat quietly by the window. The encounter had forced him to confront uncomfortable truths about himself and his family's behavior. Their children, Brittany and Tyler, were unusually subdued. The previous evening's dinner had been a silent affair, with both teenagers lost in thought. The revelation about Rose had made them question everything they had been taught about success and status. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. Brittany Thompson made her way to the housekeeping office, away from her family's watchful eyes. She found Rose organizing supplies, still in her work uniform. "Mrs. Williams," Brittany started, her voice trembling slightly. I wanted to apologize for how I've behaved. Not just about the smoothie incident, but everything." Rose looked up, surprised by the sincerity in the young girl's voice. "Have a seat, Brittany," she said kindly, pulling up a chair. For the next hour, Rose shared stories from her early days at the resort. She told Brittany about the challenges she faced, the sacrifices she made, and the lessons she learned along the way. "Success isn't about what you own or how others treat you," Rose explained. "It's about how you treat others and the impact you make on their lives." Brittany left the office that day with a new perspective, clutching a business card with Rose's personal email address. "If you're serious about making changes in your life," Rose had told her, "I'm here to help." The story took another turn when Richard Thompson requested a private meeting with Rose. In her office, he was a different man from the arrogant guest who had dismissed her days earlier. "Mrs. Williams," he began, "I've spent my entire career measuring success in dollars and cents. Watching you work alongside your staff, despite your position, it's made me question everything I've taught my children about success." Rose listened as Richard shared his own story, of growing up in a middle-class family, of the pressure to succeed, and of somewhere along the way losing sight of the values his parents had instilled in him. "It's never too late to change, Mr. Thompson," Rose responded. "The measure of a person isn't in how they act when they're at the top, but in how they treat others on their way there." As the week progressed, the atmosphere at the Royal Palm Resort began to shift. The Thompson family's transformation became a catalyst for change among other guests. Patricia, though still struggling with her pride, began making an effort to learn the names of the staff members who attended to their needs. Rose continued her daily rounds, but now guests and staff alike saw the wisdom behind her choice to stay connected to every aspect of her business. She wasn't just an owner, she was a leader who understood that true luxury wasn't about expensive furnishings or exclusive amenities, it was about creating an environment where every person felt valued and respected. One evening, as Rose finished her shift, she found a handwritten note in the staff room. It was from Tyler Thompson, the youngest member of the family. "Dear Mrs. Williams, I never understood why my parents' success didn't make them happy. Now I think I do. Thank you for showing me that there's a different way to live. Tyler." The note joined the collection of memories in Rose's photo album, another chapter in a story that was far from over. As she walked through her resort that evening, she smiled at the thought of Mr. Chen and hoped she was living up to his legacy, not just as a successful business owner, but as someone who understood that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the lives you touched along the way. The transformation of the Thompson family was just beginning, and Rose Williams' influence would continue to ripple through their lives in ways none of them could have predicted. But that's a story for another chapter. A month had passed since the dramatic revelation at the Royal Palm Resort. The story of Rose Williams, the housekeeper turned owner, had spread beyond the confines of Palm Beach, catching the attention of business magazines and social media. But Rose remained focused on her vision, undistracted by the sudden publicity. The Thompson family had returned to their New York penthouse, but the lessons learned at the Royal Palm Resort had sparked unexpected changes in their lives. Richard Thompson sat in his corner office on Wall Street, staring at a framed photo of his family from 10 years ago. They were smiling, but now he noticed how artificial those smiles looked, practiced poses for a professional photographer. His phone buzzed with a message from Brittany. Since their return from Florida, his daughter had been volunteering at a local community center, helping underprivileged teens with college applications. The transformation in her was remarkable. "Dad, can we talk about starting a scholarship program?" her message read. "Like the one Mrs. Williams told me about?" Meanwhile, at the Royal Palm Resort, Rose was implementing the changes she had announced. The Employee Education Fund had already received its first applications, and the stories behind each one touched her heart deeply. Among them was a note from Maria, a young housekeeper supporting 3 younger siblings. "Mrs. Williams, when I saw you working alongside us even though you owned everything, I understood that dignity comes from who we are, not what we own. My dream is to become a hotel manager, and thanks to your program, that dream doesn't feel impossible anymore." One particularly humid afternoon, Rose received an unexpected call from Patricia Thompson. The woman's usual haughty tone was replaced with something more hesitant, almost humble. "Mrs. Williams," Patricia began, clearing her throat. "I've been doing some thinking. Our family foundation usually hosts a charity gala each winter. I wondered if you might be willing to speak about your employee education initiative. Perhaps we could help expand it to other hotels." Rose smiled, remembering Mr. Chen's words about how true change often comes from unexpected places. "I'd be happy to, Mrs. Thompson. In fact, I have some ideas about how we could make an even bigger impact." The conversation that followed lasted over an hour, with Patricia revealing vulnerabilities she'd never shared before. She spoke about her own humble beginnings, which she'd spent years trying to hide beneath designer labels and affected mannerisms. "I was so afraid of going back to being nobody," Patricia confessed, her voice cracking. "I thought if people knew where I came from, they wouldn't respect me. But watching you commanded more respect in your housekeeping uniform than I ever did in my designer clothes." Back at the resort, Rose's innovative management style was creating ripples throughout the luxury hotel industry. Other high-end resorts sent representatives to study her approach, amazed by the loyalty and dedication of her staff. Tyler Thompson, who had once spent his days posting privileged lifestyle photos on social media, now shadowed different hotel departments during his school breaks. He worked alongside housekeepers, maintenance staff, and kitchen workers, learning the business from the ground up, just as Rose had done. "The other kids at school don't get it," he told Rose during one of his training sessions. "They think I'm crazy for wanting to clean rooms and learn about maintenance systems. But for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm doing something real." Rose watched as Tyler meticulously learned the proper way to make a bed, his face showing the same concentration she had seen in herself decades ago. "Success leaves clues," she told him, "but they're not always in the places people think to look." The story took another interesting turn when Richard Thompson resigned from his hedge fund position, surprising the financial world. In his resignation letter, which later went viral, he wrote, "Meeting someone who achieved everything I had but never lost their humanity made me realize I've been measuring success with the wrong metrics." He began working with Rose to develop a business education program for hotel staff across the country. The program would teach not just business skills, but the values that had made Rose successful: dignity, respect, and the understanding that true leadership meant serving others. Brittany, inspired by her ongoing correspondence with Rose, started a social media campaign called #DignityInWork, sharing stories of successful people who, like Rose, chose to stay connected to their roots. The campaign went viral, with thousands sharing their own stories of humble beginnings and the pride they took in their work, regardless of their position. One evening, as Rose completed her usual rounds at the resort, she found a group of young staff members gathered in the break room, watching a video of Patricia Thompson's appearance on a popular talk show. "I used to think respect was something you could buy with designer clothes and expensive memberships," Patricia was saying. "But I learned from Rose Williams that respect is earned through how you treat others, especially those you think can't do anything for you." The staff watched in amazement as Patricia Thompson, once known for her condescending treatment of service workers, spoke passionately about the dignity of work and the importance of treating all people with respect. Rose quietly slipped away, heading to her office. There, she opened her desk drawer and pulled out another letter from Mr. Chen, written shortly before his passing. She had read it countless times, but tonight its words held new meaning. "Dear Rose. Success is like a mirror, it shows us who we really are. Some see their reflection and forget where they came from. Others, like you, see it and remember. Keep remembering, and help others to see their own worth. With faith in your future. Mr. Chen." As she prepared for the next day's board meeting, Rose reflected on how one small act of authenticity, choosing to work alongside her staff, had created a ripple effect that was transforming not just the Thompson family, but challenging the very notion of success in the luxury hospitality industry. The story of the Royal Palm Resort was becoming more than just a tale of a housekeeper who became an owner. It was evolving into a movement, challenging people to question their assumptions about success, dignity, and the true meaning of luxury. But the most significant changes were yet to come, as the Thompsons and Rose Williams would soon discover. 6 months after the Thompson family's life-changing experience at the Royal Palm Resort, the ripple effects of Rose Williams' influence had grown into waves of transformation. The annual Palm Beach Hospitality Excellence Award ceremony was approaching, and for the first time in its history, they had created a new category: innovation in workplace culture. On a crisp autumn evening, Rose sat in her private office, reviewing the final plans for a revolutionary new project. The Royal Palm Resort was about to launch the hospitality industry's first comprehensive employee development academy, offering everything from technical skills to management training. But what made it truly special was that every graduate would receive shares in the company. "When people have ownership," Rose explained to her board members, "they have pride. And pride in one's work is the foundation of true luxury service." Meanwhile, in New York, the Thompson family was preparing for their return to the Royal Palm Resort, not as guests this time, but as partners in Rose's vision. Richard Thompson had sold his shares in his hedge fund and redirected his investment expertise toward expanding Rose's employee empowerment programs to other hotel chains. Brittany Thompson's #DignityInWork campaign had evolved into a full-fledged nonprofit organization, connecting privileged teenagers with mentors from diverse professional backgrounds. Her Instagram, once filled with shopping hauls and luxury vacation photos, now showcased stories of young people discovering the value of hard work and authentic success. "Mrs. Williams taught me that influence isn't about showing off what you have," Brittany explained in a viral TED Talk. "It's about using what you have to lift others up." Back at the resort, Rose was facing an unexpected challenge. Several competing luxury hotels had started offering enormous salaries to poach her staff, seeing their training under her as a mark of excellence. But to their surprise, most employees declined these offers. During a staff meeting, one of the housekeepers explained why, at other hotels, we'd just be employees. Here, we're family. Mrs. Williams didn't just give us jobs, she gave us dignity. Tyler Thompson, now a regular presence at the resort during his school breaks, had become particularly close to the maintenance team. He had discovered a natural talent for engineering and problem-solving, spending hours learning about the complex systems that kept the luxury resort running smoothly. "You know what's funny?" he told Rose one day while helping repair an air conditioning unit. "My old friends think I'm weird for enjoying this kind of work. But for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm doing something that matters." Patricia Thompson's transformation had perhaps been the most surprising. The woman who once complained about the help was now chairing a foundation dedicated to providing hospitality training and education to underprivileged youth. She had traded her social teas for board meetings, working tirelessly to create opportunities for others. One afternoon, as Rose was conducting her daily rounds, she overheard Patricia giving a tour to potential donors. "The future of luxury isn't about marble floors and golden faucets," Patricia was saying. "It's about creating an environment where every person, guest and staff alike, feels valued and respected." Rose smiled, remembering how Mr. Chen had said almost the same words to her decades ago. The memory inspired her to share something she'd been keeping private, Mr. Chen's personal journal, which he had left to her in his will. That evening, she invited the Thompsons to join her in her office. Opening the worn leather journal, she began to read Mr. Chen's words: "True luxury is not about what we can take from the world, but what we can give back to it. Every person who walks through these doors, whether they're wearing a uniform or designer clothes, carries dreams worth nurturing." The words struck a chord with Patricia, who wiped away tears. "I spent so many years thinking luxury meant being above others," she admitted. "Now I understand it's about lifting others up." The journal reading sparked a new initiative. Rose and the Thompsons decided to establish the Chen Legacy Program, which would identify promising employees across all departments and provide them with the resources and mentoring needed to become future leaders in the hospitality industry. As news of these developments spread, the Royal Palm Resort became more than just a luxury destination, it became a model for a new kind of business leadership. Journalists and business schools sought to understand how a housekeeper-turned-owner had created such a successful enterprise while challenging traditional notions of status and success. But Rose remained focused on the day-to-day operations, still making beds and checking rooms alongside her staff. When asked why she continued these tasks, she would smile and share another of Mr. Chen's teachings: "The view from the top only stays clear when you remember what it looks like from the bottom." The story's impact continued to grow, touching lives far beyond the resort's grounds. Other luxury hotels began adopting similar practices, realizing that true excellence came not from fancy amenities but from empowered, dignified staff who took pride in their work. As Rose prepared for the upcoming Hospitality Excellence Awards, she reflected on how far things had come. The Thompsons, once the embodiment of entitled wealth, had become partners in her mission to transform the industry. But more importantly, they had transformed themselves. The next chapter would bring new challenges and opportunities, as the ripple effects of their story continued to spread. But for now, Rose took satisfaction in knowing that every bed she made, every room she checked, and every employee she mentored was part of a larger mission, one that Mr. Chen had started, and she was honored to continue. The evening of the Hospitality Excellence Awards arrived, transforming the Royal Palm Resort's grand ballroom into a glittering celebration of industry achievement. But unlike previous years, where guests and owners dominated the spotlight, this year's event made space for staff members from every department to attend. Rose stood at the entrance, greeting arriving guests while simultaneously helping a new employee adjust his bow tie. She wore a simple but elegant black dress, her housekeeping uniform carefully pressed and waiting in her office for tomorrow's duties. The sight of uniformed staff mingling confidently with industry executives marked how much had changed in the past year. Behind the scenes, Brittany Thompson was directing a documentary crew, capturing interviews with employees whose lives had been transformed by Rose's initiatives. One particularly moving story came from David, a former dishwasher who now managed the resort's five-star restaurant. Before Mrs. Williams took over, David shared with the camera, "I was just trying to make ends meet. Now I'm putting my kids through college and teaching other staff members about wine pairings and fine dining. She saw potential in me that I didn't even see in myself." Patricia Thompson, dressed in a conservative business suit rather than her usual designer gowns, was busy introducing Rose's employee education program to other hotel owners. The woman who once refused to learn her housekeeper's name now knew the life stories of dozens of staff members, advocating passionately for their advancement. "Look around this room," Patricia addressed a group of skeptical executives. "Every person here, whether they're wearing a uniform or a tuxedo, has something valuable to contribute. We've doubled our repeat guest rates since implementing Rose's vision, and our staff turnover is nearly zero. The numbers speak for themselves." Richard Thompson, who had once measured success solely in profit margins, now found himself leading a workshop on ethical business practices in the hospitality industry. His Wall Street expertise, combined with Rose's humanitarian approach, was creating a new model for luxury hotel management. "Profit and purpose aren't mutually exclusive," he explained to his attentive audience. "When you invest in your people, you invest in your future. Our shareholders aren't just seeing better returns, they're seeing sustainable, long-term growth built on a foundation of dignity and respect." The highlight of the evening came when Tyler Thompson took the stage. The teenager who had once treated staff with casual disdain was now proud to announce the launch of the Chin Williams Scholarship Foundation, a program that would provide full university scholarships to hotel employees' children. "A year ago," Tyler began, his voice steady despite his nervousness, "I thought success meant having others serve you. Mrs. Williams taught me that true success means serving others. This foundation is our way of ensuring that every dream has a chance to become reality." Rose watched from the back of the room, her heart full as she witnessed the transformation of not just the Thompson family, but of an entire industry's perspective. Mr. Chen's journal sat in her handbag, its worn pages containing the wisdom that had guided her journey. The award ceremony itself brought a surprise. Instead of the expected Innovation in Workplace Culture award, the committee announced a new permanent honor, the Rose Williams Excellence in Leadership Award, celebrating individuals who demonstrated exceptional commitment to employee empowerment and dignity in the workplace. As Rose accepted the inaugural award named in her honor, she shared a story she'd never told publicly before. "When I first started as a housekeeper," she began, "I found a note from a guest complaining that I was too proud for someone cleaning rooms. Mr. Chen called me to his office, and I thought I was going to be fired. Instead, he said something I'll never forget: never let anyone make you ashamed of doing honest work with dignity." The ballroom fell silent as Rose continued, "Today, I'm proud to own this resort. But I'm even prouder when I'm making beds alongside our housekeeping staff, or helping our maintenance team, or training new employees. Because success isn't about rising above others, it's about rising together." Later that evening, as the celebration continued, Rose slipped away to her office, changing into her housekeeping uniform. There were rooms to prepare for tomorrow's guests, and she had never missed a morning shift. As she pushed her cart down the quiet hallway, she heard footsteps behind her. It was Patricia Thompson, still in her evening wear, but now carrying cleaning supplies. "I thought you could use some help," she said simply. "Tyler's covering the lobby with the night team, and Brittany's helping in the laundry room. Richard's learning the reservation system." Rose smiled, remembering another passage from Mr. Chen's journal: "The greatest luxury we can offer our guests is the sight of people who love their work, no matter what that work might be." As they worked together, Rose and Patricia discussed plans for expanding their programs to other hotels. The Thompson family had committed their considerable resources and influence to spreading Rose's vision throughout the industry. But more importantly, they had committed themselves to continuing their own personal growth. The night shift passed quickly, and as dawn broke over the Palm Beach coastline, Rose stood at her favorite spot on the resort's beachfront. She could see the lights coming on in the kitchen as the breakfast team began their day, the maintenance crew starting their morning checks, and the first early rising guests heading to the gym. This was more than just a luxury resort now, it was a living testament to the power of treating every person with dignity, of seeing potential where others saw only position. The story of the proud housekeeper and the humbled wealthy family had become a beacon of hope for an industry in transformation. But even as the resort's influence grew and its model was celebrated and copied, Rose knew that the real work happened in small, daily moments, in kind words exchanged between staff and guests, in opportunities offered to those who sought to learn and grow, and in the quiet pride of doing any job well. The next chapter would bring new challenges and opportunities, but for now, Rose had rooms to prepare and employees to mentor. After all, true luxury wasn't built in grand moments, but in the careful attention to every small detail, every human interaction, and every opportunity to lift others up along the way. 1 year after the Hospitality Excellence Awards, the Royal Palm Resort had become a case study in progressive business management. Harvard Business School professors regularly brought their students to observe what they called the Williams model of leadership. But on this particular morning, Rose was focused on something more personal. In her hand, she held an invitation to speak at the United Nations Global Business Summit about sustainable and ethical business practices. While such recognition was gratifying, what truly excited her was the upcoming graduation ceremony for the first class of the Royal Palm Employee Development Academy. 25 employees, including housekeepers, maintenance workers, and kitchen staff, had completed the 2-year program while continuing their regular duties. Each would receive not only advanced certifications but also shares in the company, making them part owners of the enterprise they had helped build. "You've created something revolutionary," Richard Thompson remarked as he helped Rose set up for the graduation ceremony. The former hedge fund manager had found new purpose in mentoring the Academy's financial literacy programs. These people aren't just employees anymore, they're stakeholders in their own future. The ceremony was being held in the same ballroom where, not so long ago, the Thompson family had looked down on the staff. Now, Patricia Thompson sat among the proud family members, dabbing tears as each graduate walked across the stage. She had personally mentored several of them in business etiquette and management skills. Among the graduates was Maria, the young housekeeper who had dreamed of becoming a hotel manager. She had completed the program with highest honors while supporting her siblings through school. As she accepted her certificate and company shares, she shared a story that moved the entire audience. "Last week, a guest asked me why I was studying management when I could just stick to cleaning," Maria recounted. "I told them what Mrs. Williams always says, every job has dignity when it's done with pride, and every person has potential when given the chance to grow." The transformation extended beyond the resort's walls. Brittany Thompson's documentary about the Royal Palms journey had caught the attention of major streaming services. But more importantly, it had inspired other businesses to rethink their approach to employee development. Tyler, now in his first year of college studying hospitality management and engineering, had started a mentorship program connecting wealthy students with working professionals from diverse backgrounds. "The biggest lesson I learned from Mrs. Williams," he told a journalist, "was that wisdom doesn't come from privilege, it comes from experience." Rose's daily routine remained unchanged despite her growing influence. Every morning, she would make her rounds, checking rooms and mentoring staff. But now, she was often joined by industry leaders who wanted to understand her approach firsthand. "The secret," she would tell them, "is that there is no secret. Treat people with dignity, give them opportunities to grow, and trust them to rise to challenges. Everything else follows naturally." One morning, as Rose was training a new housekeeper, she received an unexpected visit from a familiar face. It was Mr. Chen's grandson, who had flown in from Singapore after watching Brittany's documentary. "My grandfather wrote about you constantly in his letters," he said, pulling out a stack of old correspondence. "He said you understood something that many wealthy people never learn, that true luxury is created by the dignity of the people providing it, not the price of the surroundings." The letters revealed another surprise. Mr. Chen had predicted Rose's success long before she became owner. "This young woman," he had written, "will not only run this resort one day but will transform how the entire industry thinks about success and service." The revelation inspired Rose to expand the Chen Williams Scholarship Foundation. Working with the Thompson family, she established a global exchange program where hospitality workers from different countries could train at each other's properties, sharing knowledge and building international connections. Patricia Thompson, who now served on the Foundation's board, had undergone perhaps the most remarkable transformation. The woman who once demanded special treatment now insisted on learning every aspect of hotel operations. She could often be found in the laundry room, kitchen, or maintenance department, learning from the staff she had once dismissed. "I used to think power meant having others serve you," Patricia reflected during a staff training session. "Now I understand that true power lies in serving others, in helping them reach their full potential." The Royal Palm Resort success had created a ripple effect throughout Palm Beach. Other luxury properties, seeing the benefits of Rose's approach, began implementing similar programs. The competition for staff training spots at the Royal Palm Academy became fierce, with hundreds of applicants for each class. But Rose never lost sight of the human element in her success story. Each morning, she would read entries from Mr. Chen's journal, finding new wisdom in his words. "Luxury without humanity is just expensive emptiness. True luxury makes everyone it touches feel valued, respected, and worthy." As she prepared for the UN summit, Rose reflected on how far they had come. The Thompson family, once the embodiment of privileged entitlement, had become partners in creating a more equitable and dignified workplace. Their story had become a symbol of how wealth and privilege could be redirected toward positive change. The graduation ceremony concluded with a surprise announcement. The Royal Palm Resort would be expanding its academy program to 10 other locations worldwide, with graduates from the first class serving as instructors. The ripple effect of one housekeeper's dignity and one family's transformation would soon touch lives across the globe. But even as her influence grew, Rose remained grounded in the daily work that had started her journey. Tomorrow morning, she would still make her rounds, straighten beds, and mentor staff, not because she had to, but because she understood that true leadership meant staying connected to every aspect of your business and every person in your care. The autumn leaves danced across the Royal Palm Resort's immaculate grounds as Rose prepared for a momentous occasion. The United Nations Global Business Summit was being held at her resort, bringing together leaders from around the world to discuss ethical business practices. But what made this day truly special was the announcement she would make during the summit. In her office, Rose reviewed the final details of her latest initiative, the Global Dignity Project. The program would extend well beyond the hospitality industry, partnering with corporations worldwide to implement employee empowerment programs modeled after the Royal Palm success. "You're changing the world, one business at a time," Richard Thompson remarked as he helped her prepare her presentation. The former Wall Street titan had become one of her strongest advocates, using his connections to open doors that had once been firmly closed to someone of Rose's background. The main lobby buzzed with activity as delegates from various countries arrived. Among them was a group of hotel workers from different continents, invited specially by Rose to share their perspectives on workplace dignity. Their presence at such a prestigious gathering was unprecedented, but Rose had insisted that real change required hearing from those most affected by corporate policies. Brittany Thompson, now a respected documentary filmmaker, was capturing everything for her new series about workplace transformation. Her cameras followed a young housekeeper from Brazil as she addressed CEOs and world leaders, sharing her dreams and challenges with quiet confidence. Before hearing about Mrs. Williams' story, the young woman explained, "I thought my position defined my worth. Now I understand that dignity isn't given to us by our job title, it comes from how we choose to carry ourselves and treat others." Patricia Thompson, elegantly dressed but wearing a name tag identifying her as a housekeeping trainer, guided groups of executives through the resort's daily operations. The woman who once refused to make eye contact with service staff now taught others about the importance of connecting with employees at every level. "Watch how our staff members carry themselves," she instructed the visiting executives. "That confidence doesn't come from high salaries, it comes from knowing they're valued, respected, and have a real stake in the company's success." Tyler, home from college for the summit, had set up an innovation showcase highlighting inventions and improvements suggested by staff members. The maintenance team's energy-saving systems and the housekeeping staff's efficient cleaning methods had saved the resort millions while improving working conditions. "Every person here is an innovator," Tyler explained to the visitors. "When you give people ownership of their work environment, they find ways to make it better. We just had to learn to listen." As Rose prepared to take the stage for her keynote address, she felt Mr. Chen's presence stronger than ever. She had placed his journal on the podium, drawing strength from his wisdom as she prepared to share their vision with the world. "Distinguished guests," she began, "true luxury isn't created by marble floors or golden faucets. It's created by people who work with dignity, purpose, and pride. Today, I want to tell you about a journey that began with a housekeeper's dream and a mentor's faith." For the next hour, Rose shared not just her story, but the stories of countless employees whose lives had been transformed by the Royal Palms approach. She spoke about Maria, now managing her own hotel. About David, the former dishwasher whose restaurant had earned a Michelin star. About countless others who had risen not through privilege, but through opportunity and hard work. The summit's highlight came when Rose announced the Global Dignity Project. The initiative would provide resources, training, and support to companies willing to implement comprehensive employee empowerment programs. The Thompson family had committed their considerable resources to funding the project's first phase. "This isn't charity," Richard Thompson explained to the assembled business leaders. "It's smart business. Our return on investment in people has far exceeded any market gains I ever made on Wall Street." As the day progressed, Rose noticed something remarkable. The hotel executives who had once dismissed her as just a housekeeper were now taking notes as she spoke about leadership and business strategy. The very people who had looked down on service workers were now learning from them. During the evening reception, Patricia Thompson shared her own transformation story. "I spent years trying to buy respect through designer clothes and expensive memberships," she admitted to the crowd. "But Rose showed me that real respect comes from how you treat others, especially those you think can't do anything for you." The Global Dignity Project launched with commitments from 50 major corporations. Each pledged to implement employee ownership programs, educational opportunities, and dignity-based management practices. The ripple effect of Rose's vision was becoming a wave of change. But even on this momentous day, Rose didn't forget her roots. Between summit sessions, she helped the housekeeping team prepare rooms for the delegates, showing visiting executives that no task was beneath a true leader's dignity. As the sun set over Palm Beach, Rose found a quiet moment to visit her favorite spot on the beach. She opened Mr. Chen's journal to an entry she had read countless times: "Success isn't measured by how high you climb, but by how many people you bring up with you." The next phase of their journey was just beginning. The Global Dignity Project would face challenges and resistance, but Rose had learned long ago that real change never comes easily. With the Thompson family's support and her growing network of allies, she was ready to take their message of dignity and empowerment to the world. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities to make a difference, new lives to touch, new barriers to break down. But for now, Rose took satisfaction in knowing that somewhere, Mr. Chen was smiling at how far his proud housekeeper had come, and how many lives she had changed along the way. 5 years after the launch of the Global Dignity Project, Rose Williams stood once again in the Royal Palm Resort's Grand Ballroom. But this time, she was surrounded by representatives from over 500 companies worldwide that had adopted her model of dignified employment and employee empowerment. The annual Global Dignity Conference had become the hospitality industry's most prestigious event, not for its luxury, but for its impact on corporate culture worldwide. The walls of the ballroom were lined with photographs, thousands of faces of employees whose lives had been transformed by the movement that started with one housekeeper's quiet dignity. When we began this journey, Rose addressed the gathered crowd, people said it was impossible. They said luxury and equality couldn't coexist. They said empowering employees would hurt profits. Today, the numbers tell a different story. Richard Thompson stepped forward to present the financial impact study. The companies that had implemented the Williams model showed remarkable results: higher retention rates, increased customer satisfaction, and significantly improved profit margins. But the real success stories weren't in the numbers. Maria, the former housekeeper who had been among the first graduates of the Royal Palm Academy, now owned her own successful hotel chain across South America. She had implemented the same principles Rose had taught her, creating opportunities for hundreds of other hospitality workers. Mrs. Williams taught us that luxury isn't about exclusion, Maria explained to the conference attendees. It's about creating an environment where everyone, guests and staff alike, feels valued and respected. Brittany Thompson's documentary series about workplace transformation had won multiple awards and sparked a global conversation about dignity in service industries. She had captured countless stories of lives changed, not just in hotels, but in restaurants, retail stores, and corporations worldwide. The most powerful moment, Brittany shared, is when someone realizes they're not just an employee, they're a stakeholder in their own future. That's when everything changes. Tyler Thompson, now a successful hotel engineer and management consultant, had developed innovative systems that improved both working conditions and operational efficiency. His programs, combining technical expertise with human-centered design, had been adopted by hotels worldwide. Every innovation we've implemented, Tyler explained, came from listening to the people doing the actual work. They always knew what needed to be done, they just needed someone to listen. Patricia Thompson, who had once embodied the entitled guest, now ran the Global Dignity Project's education division. She traveled worldwide, teaching executives about the importance of treating every employee with respect and dignity. I used to think status came from how others served you, Patricia told a group of hotel owners. Now I know it comes from how you serve others. That's the real luxury we should all aspire to. The conference's highlight was the announcement of the Chin Williams Global Scholarship Fund, which would provide full university scholarships to hospitality workers and their children worldwide. The program, funded by contributions from participating companies and the Thompson Family Foundation, would ensure that financial constraints never prevented talented individuals from reaching their potential. Rose's daily routine remained unchanged despite her global influence. Every morning, she still made her rounds at the Royal Palm Resort, mentoring staff and making beds alongside the housekeeping team. But now, her example had inspired thousands of other executives to do the same. Leadership isn't about sitting in an office, she often said. It's about understanding every aspect of your business and respecting every person who makes it possible. The Royal Palm Resort had become a living laboratory for dignified employment practices. Hotels worldwide sent their staff for training, and universities studied their model of employee ownership and empowerment. But for Rose, success was measured in the small moments, in the proud smile of a housekeeper enrolling in college courses, or the confidence of a maintenance worker presenting their innovation to management. As the conference drew to a close, Rose received news that brought her story full circle. The United Nations had created the Rose Williams Award for Business Ethics, recognizing companies that demonstrated exceptional commitment to employee dignity and empowerment. That evening, as the sunset painted the Palm Beach sky in brilliant colors, Rose walked along the beach with the Thompson family. They had come so far from their first encounter, from a wealthy family who looked down on the help, to passionate advocates for workplace dignity. You know what I realized? Patricia said softly. We thought we were somehow above everyone else because of our wealth. But you showed us that true worth isn't in your bank account, it's in how you treat others. Richard nodded in agreement. We spent years chasing status and exclusivity, never realizing that real luxury comes from inclusion and respect. Brittany and Tyler, once privileged teenagers who took service workers for granted, had grown into passionate advocates for workplace dignity. Their own children were being raised to understand the value of all work and the importance of treating everyone with respect. Back in her office, Rose opened Mr. Chen's journal one last time. The pages were worn now, but his words remained as powerful as ever. True success isn't measured in dollars or titles. It's measured in the lives you touch and the positive change you create in the world. The Global Dignity Project had grown beyond anything Rose had imagined, but its core principle remained simple: every person deserves to be treated with dignity, regardless of their position. This truth, which she had learned as a housekeeper and proven as an owner, was now transforming workplaces around the world. As she prepared for another day of making beds, mentoring staff, and spreading her message of dignity and respect, Rose smiled at how far they had all come. The proud housekeeper and the entitled family had both found something priceless: the understanding that true luxury isn't about wealth or status, but about creating a world where every person can work with dignity and pride. The story of the Royal Palm Resort would continue to inspire generations to come, not as a tale of riches or revenge, but as a testament to the transformative power of dignity, respect, and the belief that every person deserves the opportunity to rise to their full potential. And somewhere, Rose knew, Mr. Chen was smiling, watching his vision of dignified service become a global reality through the quiet determination of a proud housekeeper who never forgot where she came from, and a wealthy family who learned that true wealth lies not in what you have, but in how you treat others.